Hey everybody, this is Robot here from Vespa Motorsport, scooterwest.com for all things Vespa. Check out our web shop for both vintage and modern Vespa parts and accessories. Whether you're looking to do a crash repair, such as replacing this trim or upgrading your trim to be the black trim, or any other parts you may need, even the bodywork parts, you can give us a call. We can help you out in special ordering pre-painted parts if you like. 619-280-1718, extension 602 is the parts department. We have a dedicated crew of guys that know Vespas and can sell you any of the parts for these bikes. Today I'm going to talk about removal of the glove box, the floorboard, and the rear skirts in order to change out the trim and also the bag hook on this brand new 2020 Vespa GTS HPE SuperTech. The reason I'm doing this video, I have prior videos of changing this trim, is the HPE, they've made some subtle differences in the location of fasteners and how things come apart. So I'll go over that. I'm going to show the basic tools needed to take apart pretty much the whole entire bodywork of the scooter. You have the glove box, the floorboard, and what I refer to as the side skirts. They're all made of plastic, painted plastic. They all come off of the monocoque steel chassis that's painted as well. A very different, unconventional setup as far as new scooters. Very unique to the modern Vespa, you know, that carries from starting with the Vespa ET4 all the way up to these new 2020 models here. So we have new specific parts that fit the HPE, and in some cases the older Vespa GTS trickling into our warehouse and in stock. The trim is going to be a pretty popular one, as it has been for the prior models, 1B003380-BK, and that's a pair of the black trim to replace the silver trim. Also have the individual sides in both black and silver available, along with many of the badges that are specific to the scooter and other small trim pieces. So to do the job, to remove all the bodywork, all you need is a handful of tools. Hold them all in my hand here. So we got a small flat blade screwdriver that will be used to pry the Piaggio badge off. Don't let it roll off and scratch the scooter. Got a little 10mm wrench. You can just use a standard combination 10mm wrench. To take the foot pegs off, which isn't 100% necessary, but makes the job a little easier. You're gonna need a 5mm Allen. It could be an L-shaped one, or a nice T-handle like this. And then a pair of Torx drivers, both T25 and T30, and a number 2 Phillips driver. So that's all you need to get pretty much all the bodywork off one of these modern Vespas. So it always helps to be organized when you're taking apart any type of vehicle. You can have a roll-around cart. Today I'll use this old crusty bar stool as something to hold my few tools I need, and also have a magnetic tray to kind of keep track of the hardware. You may even want to have a multi-compartment tray if you're not familiar with the hardware. I've had these apart so many times I kind of just know where all the hardware goes, but that's something that helps you stay organized. Or you can even go as far as putting the fasteners back in the holes. I tend to find that just wastes time more than anything. Or if you're going to take it apart for a long-term period, you know, bag out the parts, put some masking tape on them, and mark your parts. And also be careful with the bodywork. You want to have towels and rags, like clean ones, not rags that you sop up old oil. Just don't want to have plastic parts grinding against each other, especially the painted parts or lenses. You know, the last thing we would ever want to do on a customer's bike is make a mistake and be reckless and drag some parts across another painted part. So first of all, we'll take off the badge. There's a real small pry point under here, and of course you got to be extra careful. See, I'm just tipping that badge up very carefully. You don't want to twist the screwdriver because it will damage the paint finish. So just stick the screwdriver in from the left side and it pries right off. And that reveals a single Torx screw under there, T25. And this is a funky looking self-tapping screw. It's got really coarse threads on it. So just FYI, it's a little different than many of the other screws. And then you just take the cover from the bottom, grasp it, you just pull it forward. And on the bottom, you saw how much force that took? There's 3 metal clips that hold it to the bodywork. And that's why it takes quite a bit of force. Obviously, if you remove this several times, it's gonna come off easier because these clips will relax a little bit. If you ever lose a clip, just search our website for gripper clip. That's what Piaggio refers to them as. And you can get replacements there. So we'll go ahead and set that aside. So the only reason you're going to take the horn cover off is to gain access to the single screw located at the top. And this is new for the HPE equipped updated GTS. So pull the single screw out, little short guy with machine threads, 6mm machine threads. And check this out, this little guy just lifts right out. So you gotta have the handlebars turned to the left or the right. And when you reinstall it, the kind of teeth go up. So that's what retains the top section of the glove box. Now we can move on to the various screws on the back half. So from the back side of the glove box, there's going to be 8 fasteners that use a T25 Torx head on it. And then there's going to be a single screw inside the glove box. As with any of these new models, to open the glove box, you're going to need the key. Turn it to the 1 o'clock position, pop that open. We'll just leave it open from now. You got the single screw right here. One thing is the screwdrivers are usually a little bit long, so you may need to just pull back the glove box a little bit. Get that pulled out, and it's just a single screw that holds it right there. And let it drop right into the tray. But go ahead and pull that screw out first. I like to pull the toolbox out just to get out of the way. It drops a little bit of weight. Not really needed in there. And then we'll move on to all the smaller fasteners. Knee pads, and I'll go ahead and set all the screws in the knee pads here. And if you watch me, I usually use my finger or a nail, and you pull the screw out so it doesn't just drop. Or you can have a magnetized tip. So many ways to kind of keep the screw with the driver. So you got 3 basic styles of the sheet metal style screws. You have the pair of long ones that don't have a tip. That's what holds these plastic covers on, both the left and right side. You have the 4 little guys, and those go behind the cover and also towards the center of the channel. And then the pair that are longer and have a point go on the very outer perimeters of the glove box. The radiator cap comes off. Sometimes it's pretty tight. You may need to use something like a channel lock or the steering bearing puller if you have that, or just torque the wrench that's for the steering bearings. So take the radiator cap off. Obviously you don't want to do that when it's a hot engine. You see the glove box is loose at this point, and up at the top is where it tends to want to hang up. If you've never had the glove box off on any of these scooters, I would suggest going as far as taking the handlebar covers off as well. The job's a little bit easier without the handlebar covers in the way, but it is possible to get the glove box off with the handlebar covers. You can see the clearance is really close right there, and what we'll do is we'll put some masking tape around there just to keep the paint from gliding, or taking a chip off the bottom of your handlebar cover. And down below I have a rag, because when you pull this away, these points right here will want to grind into the floorboard. Don't want that to occur. So either masking tape, or you can, if you're in a shop environment, there's this protection film, which is essentially just saran wrap. It's just really thick saran wrap. Take a little section of it. And this is all I need. It's just a little bit. And I'll go ahead and wrap the underside of the handlebars, prevent glove box top from grinding. So you can kind of tuck that into the seam and just kind of pull it right up there, and now it's all protected under there. It's not likely to chip. So. All right, now comes the fun part. So we're going to go ahead and work the glove box off. A couple things you need to get around is the filler neck for the coolant. On these new HPE equipped GTSs, the front is very narrow, but they go around a mass of cables that's around the handlebars. That's pretty thick. So there's gonna be a lot of stretching, more so than the old glove box. Definitely a much more difficult glove box to get off compared to the old one. And I'm pulling down and to keep this and pretty much just stretching the pair of the corners away from the bodywork. And it takes quite a bit of muscle to stretch these away. So we're almost out. You can see it takes quite a bit of prying just to get it past all the cables on the left side. And then the last obstacle that you got to get around is the ignition switch. And once I get this off, you'll see the reason this is so difficult. So kind of relax the left side. Now I'll be able to get the right side off. Now that's cleared the antenna and the key tumbler. We're doing good. You can see on the bottom down here, I have the corners of the glove box resting on that rag. So there was a lot of elbow movement, just kind of finagling this thing. Now look at this, about, what is that, less than 2 inches wide, and if you see the whole neck of the steering, there's like a good 4 inches of crap under there. So one thing you do is you can close the glove box pretty easily with, once it's off, there's the little, right in the middle is the tang, the open it acts on the latch. You can kind of see the latch, and my finger's just right on the other side, and that's how you can access the latch there. So you got a couple connectors and also the manual seat release cable that are attached to the glove box. The upper connectors for your electronic seat latch, pretty straightforward. Make sure you get that connected because the scooter will function fine once you put it back together. Without that, then you go to open the seat. The fuse block's a little trickier. You have a single tang right located in the middle here, and you can use your flat blade screwdriver, lift that tang just a little bit, and that takes quite a bit of pressure off once you disconnect this fuse holder. You see one of those posi locks. This scooter's got the heated grips installed, so that's what's connecting that. Then you have the USB jack on any of these newer models, and you can pretty much just use your thumb, flick that little tab on it, and push the connector right off. Last thing that's still connected is the seat release cable. And oftentimes I won't even disconnect this if I don't need to remove the whole glove box. For instance, if I'm gonna change the bag hook or even the leg shield trim. So we're gonna leave that alone. I'll just unhook the cable out of that little clamp. Oftentimes you'll find that clamp is dried out and somewhere down in the frame. It's not all that critical, but just be aware that's there for this cable. So even with this cable connected, glove box is pretty mobile. You can carefully set that on the ground just out of the way. And for instance, if you need to service the hose clamps or anything else, you want to put a light kit in here. There's the ABS pump. I think the initial teardown of one of these scooters I did on the first review, right when I got my hands on it, kind of showed all this stuff. You can see that video. It's got light kit on it. This is the little interface device for the Bluetooth connectivity to the dash. There's a turn signal flasher. If you're dropping the fork, you're going to need to disconnect the brake line from the ABS pump, along with this connector at the very top left, which is for the front wheel speed sensor. So in order to change the leg shield trim, you're going to need to partially remove or completely remove the floorboards. And in order to remove the floorboards, you're going to have to take these side skirts off. And in order to take the side skirts off, you want to get the license frame out of the way. It is possible to slip these by the license frame, but I found it's just easier to loosen all this stuff up, and then you could safely pull these skirts off without damaging the paint finish and dragging them across the sharp edge of the license frame. So get the license frame out of here, and then the bracket for the license frame is held by 3 Phillips screws. And behind it, there's 3 nuts, and depending on when your new Vespa was produced, they've already changed this bracket. I'm talking in the first like 3 months of production. So this is the earlier style bracket that I found on the SuperTech. The later ones, they have a screw that comes in from the back. It's a Phillips screw, so just be aware that's a little different on the even later, newer 2020. So behind there, you got the screw, a big flat washer, a split washer, and the nut. And typically they don't need to be all that tight, so you could just hold them with your fingers. That one's a little on the tight side, but I'm not going to completely remove it. I just want to get out of the way. And just, it's easier if you just put your fingers in there. Another option is just hold a socket in there, because the idea is I'm holding the nut and the washers and everything so they don't fall all over the ground, you know, like it's about to do right here. But it's able to capture all those parts. If you put a socket back there, it's likely just you pull the screw out and it's gonna just fall off. But you can leave one of them there, just turn it to the side, no big deal. Get the taillight off, a single fastener on the bottom, T30 Torx driver. Taillight's not gonna fall right off like the old models. Get the big long screw out of there. It's got a wave washer. And the taillight just pulls away from the body. It's a single connector, just like the USB jack, but it's got 3 pins. I'll disconnect it and show you how that works. So right there's the little tang right there. Here's a perfect example of the gripper clip that was left behind. Sometimes they won't stay with it. Those are the clips that hold this thing. So I'll take the bracket off and then I can just snap the clip back on when I put it back together. If you got an old Vespa, you can see pretty much they got this little bracket here that's special. You're getting a 2015 and newer frame that has the pair of holes up here to put a taillight like this along with the bracket, and the connector is different. Just an FYI if you're watching this video to check that kind of stuff out. Now we can get the pair of screws out. I'm the wrong driver here. I could certainly speed up this whole process if I use just a little power driver, but I'll just do it with hand tools today. So you got the pair of screws. And behind each one of the skirts, just like the old ones, use a closed-in 10mm wrench. It's a nice little ratchet one. Makes the job nice and easy. I'm just feeling around, kind of know right where that fastener is. I'll show you what will come right out. So you got a single flange nut. And find the same on the other side. Pair of nuts. And now we'll take our T25 screwdriver and remove the single screw that holds the front of the skirt in place. Keep in mind it's a different screw on the left and right side. So see, I just popped that little bit out. It kind of snaps right in, and I'll work from the back. You know, with the threaded boss sometimes will want to get stuck on the bodywork of the scooter. Just carefully pull this away from the body. See, there's 3 rubber snaps and a single threaded boss. And do the same on the other side. So these next 3 steps, you're gonna repeat on the other side as well. I'm just gonna do them on the one side to speed up the video a little. Take the single screw that holds this end cap on, T25 Torx. Nice short little screw. Then pull the cap off, just pulls back towards the back of the scooter, comes right off. It's got like a little bump that engages it with this little claw at the end. take the single screw that retains the floorboard out. It's going to be a short M6 screw here. T30 I was using right there. Then we're going to go ahead and remove the foot pegs. It is possible to take the floorboard off without removing the foot pegs, or you could change the trim and just leave the floorboard in place. But I'm going to show how to do the full job. You're always going to get better results if you have everything out of the way. You can use your 5mm Allen and go ahead and crack the screw. It's nice to have the ball-ended Allen so you can, position the screw. Pull that away. There's a big fat washer on that one and a wave washer on that front fastener. And the rear fastener is a little more difficult to get to. I'm going to use the ball side, kind of put some pressure on it because it is pretty tight. And the way to keep that fastener from falling into the body of the scooter is hold on to the peg and kind of, as you're rotating the fastener, just keep it with the peg. So there you go. And you can see it's got the same washer arrangement as well. We'll move on to remove the battery cover. Pretty straightforward. 3 of the same fasteners, all removed with a T25 Torx driver. And you got a single fastener that holds the main fuse along with the center of the floorboard. I don't know if the camera gets it, but you can see the screwdriver going directly in the center seam of the scooter. T30 Torx driver. Go ahead and pull this step fastener out. And I'll show you there's one more little piece that's with this. It just fell. I'll have to go retrieve it. But there's a little washer that goes onto the step, and it's usually left behind in the plastic. So just make sure it's there. It's frequently lost when people take these apart and aren't aware of that fastener or that extra little teeny washer. I'll retrieve that part and show you it as we put it back together. So that's pretty much all the fasteners that you can easily see. There's a couple more fasteners that hold the floorboard on. And you're going to want to have to pull up these rubber strips on just the outer side. The inner ones, there's no fasteners. And you see I'm just using my fingers pulling these away. Be kind of gentle with them. If you just rip this off, it typically will just tear the thing right up. So once you're to the third fastener, you can leave the rest connected, no big deal. Go ahead and remove the 3 fasteners, all with the T25 Torx driver. They're going to be all the same length. And go ahead and repeat on the other side as well. And that pretty much summarizes or sums up all the fasteners that hold the floorboard in place. So now you can see the floorboard's ready to pull right out. One thing to keep in mind is this edge, when you pull out, it's going to want to drag right up the frame of the scooter. So again, you could either use some type of masking tape, or you could tuck a rag into the groove. See how I'm pulling it around. It's mainly that corner right there, and do the same on the other side. And then we'll be able to safely lift the floorboard out of the way. And if you're looking to do the Legshield trim in a pinch, like I stated earlier, it is possible to pull the trim out by leaving the floorboard in place and just loosening those edge fasteners. But in the interest of doing it accurately, we're just going to go ahead and pull the whole floorboard out. See, at this point I can get the trim off if I wanted to. But you lift each side of the floorboard out, get it derailed from the Legshield trim, and this hasn't changed. It's pretty much the same as it's been since the GT came out. Nothing different here. And another obstacle you have is the fan motor. Two ways to go about it. If you want to be extra careful, say I was putting together a freshly painted scooter, I typically would remove the fan. And there's 3 screws that hold the fan to the radiator. But since this scooter's got hardened paint, I'm not too concerned with chipping the paint right here where you'll never see it. So this is what I'm gonna do, is you just kind of pry that corner away. The plastic corner is pretty flexible, and so it clears that fan motor. And then start pulling it towards the front. And now the floorboard comes out safely without dragging against any of the bodywork. So what do you have underneath here? You have the tilt sensor, the tip over sensor, never really any issues there. If you're gonna remove the motor, you got a pair of connectors here. This is your voltage regulator connector coming from the stator. This is your pickup, the crank position pickup and oil pressure switch connector. There's a thermo sensor somewhere in there, and along with a connector for your side stand switch. Since these do have a side stand, there's a safety switch. Brake hoses, plumbing for your radiators. Obviously the battery. If there's ever a reason you need to gain access to the voltage regulator, you want to pull the battery and battery tray out. The voltage regulator's located right in the frame cavity, right underneath and behind the battery. So just giving you a summary of all the stuff that's under there. When you replace a trim, you look at the edge of the sheet metal right here. This is where the trim ends. You want to make sure you install the new trim in the same spot. So it ends right there. You can also reference the front. Just go ahead and start by pulling the trim away from the bodywork. If it's all busted up on a crash bike, it could be easier, or sometimes it's more difficult if this edge is beat up and no longer true and straight. You can, obviously, if you're going to do body work to the scooter, you can hammer and dolly this edge back into shape so it matches a fresh edge. So the trim pulls right off, no big deal. So you got a right and a left trim, and obviously it's the shape of the right or left leg shield edge. Pretty straightforward, can't really mess that one up. And just go ahead and hook the trim right onto the edge. And I'm starting right where it lines up with the edge of the sheet metal. I'll get down at the level of the trim, and I'm kind of rolling it onto the metal edge. One thing you got to be careful is this is flopping around up at the top. Make sure it's not grinding onto bodywork anywhere. And the first obstacle is this little seam right here. Sometimes it's a little difficult to get it past the seam. The second obstacle is the sheet metal gets much thicker right here where the radiator bracket goes. So you're going to have to put a lot more force into it. If you're really struggling with it, you could certainly spray like silicone lubricant on there or something, or something that will help you. This one's going on pretty nice. I've had to fight with them a little bit more in the past. So make sure this doesn't grind on your handlebar covers there. And we're going to go ahead and just work it up to the last obstacle, which is this corner. The trim never seems to fit all that well around this corner. You just got to kind of just work it. And again, the bracket for that corner kind of doubles the thickness of the sheet metal right there. So snap it all on and check it all the way around. Kind of maneuver it so the corner looks the best it will. You'll always have a little discrepancy here, how it wraps around this, the upper left and right corner. And then go ahead, if you're replacing the other side, do pretty much the same thing. So now we got that new sharp looking black trim. The trim this bike should have came with from the first place. Go ahead and put the floorboard on, pretty much reverse of what we did before. Have the rags in place to kind of keep the sides from grinding on anything, keep the floor rubbers out of the way. And we're gonna get past the fan motor. Kind of got to work it past the fan motor. Make sure none of the cables are trapped. And Just kind of work it down. One thing to keep in mind, make sure these little plastic guys don't pop out of place. I've seen that happen before. Next step is you want to get the floorboard snapped into the channel of the leg shield trim. And a lot of times it won't stay in place. Kind of look at the holes, look where the screws bottomed out. That's kind of a good reference point to start. Get those back in place and do the same on the other side here. Now we can pull our rags out. Just kind of keep the thing from pulling up. And as you can see, it was a lot easier without the foot pegs in there. If you do this job with the foot pegs in, it's certainly possible, but you're doing a lot more stretching and grinding and just ends up being a lot of work. So take the screw that retains the center rear section of the floorboard right behind the battery, and there's that little teeny washer. Pretty easy to retrieve. One part I fumbled with. And make sure that washer's in place. That prevents the screw from bottoming out, since it does go through this little bracket right here. You see the little bracket that retains the main fuse. So if you ever wonder why nothing works on your scooter, or you accidentally reverse the battery terminals, look at that fuse. 30 amp fuse is located under there. So this is always the first one to start with, because it tends to pull the floorboard into place. So kind of the positions your floorboard. Then you can move on to the edge ones or the side one, not too critical. But before you put the foot pegs in place, you want to have all the screws holding the floorboard. You have the 3 identical screws for the outer edge. You start with the center one. They go into little plastic nylon squares that are pressed into the frame. And then go ahead and you could push the floor strip back into place. If you're going to do a floor mat, many of the floor mats don't use this strip, so you take the strip all the way out if you're going with a floor mat. And pretty much you do the identical steps on the other side as well. So this little guy, the way it snaps in, see that little hole? There's a little peg that lines up with that hole, and it just kind of snaps over the leg shield trim. There's also a hook underneath there. So that's not quite all the way seated. It needs to go a little bit more. And one thing to keep in mind, if you see some of the black trim, then you installed it too far forward. So keep that in mind. It's critical where you install that trim. Single screw, the short self-tapping screw holds this little cover in place. I'll show you a trick with the foot pegs. So I have the single screws that hold the foot pegs in. If you just have those basic L-style Allen keys, you could use a T30 to start it. It doesn't really get a very good grip on a 5mm Allen, but it certainly will help you out if you don't have something like that T-handle I was using. So you can use it as a screwdriver. I'm going to go ahead and get it where it's almost in there, all the way. Perfect time to add foot peg extenders. You can see the videos for those. I got 2 videos up with the foot peg extenders. Just makes this scooter much more comfortable for passengers. These stock pegs, they might look cool and be trick, but not very comfortable. All right, I'm not tightening these screws all the way. Just leave them a little bit, and we're going to test fit. See that gap? It's pretty huge and pretty small right there. The holes on these foot pegs are pretty large, and there's a lot of give to, for adjustability. So Yeah, it's a little bit better. Still is biased towards the back, but just definitely you don't want it hanging up on the bodywork. Tip it down a little bit on that side. Let's try it right there. All right, looks pretty plumb with the edge of the floorboard there. So let's do the final torquing on those. This one, typically you can't get the Allen, you just have to use a ball end. And make sure you put a lot of pressure, because the ball will typically want to pop out the ball end style Allen. So works perfect, no problems there. Rubber mat over the battery can be installed. So these pair of teeth right here go right into these pair of holes. Best way to do that is tip the skirt into those holes. You know, they're not going to just automatically go in there. See how I just dropped them right in? Now the seam looks perfect right there. And once you get that in, then you can carefully use pressure to push these rubber pegs or the plastic pegs into the rubber grommets that are around the body's skirts. The last one, you got to make sure that threaded boss goes right through and give it a little technical bump, as I would say. And then we can go ahead and close this up. The same screw. So first of all, on the right side, you want to get this this skirt over the little boss. It's a little more difficult than the old ones, and you could just stretch it a little bit and get to go over that. And if you want, you can put the screw in there, and then you'll be able to get the closure in there. You know, and as you tighten the screws, this closure will pull together. So make sure that tab doesn't overlap. You know, as it tightens up, you want to make sure that that tab pulls closer together. So. There we go. Not all the way tight on a screw. And you can always get a little tighter by squeezing the back here as you tighten this last screw. And that's pretty much how you handle that. And the nuts that retain the skirts go back in place. Feel your way around and you can find the threaded boss. All right, now we're on to getting the glove box back installed. This is the actuation lever for the glove box, and it acts on this little lever right here. From the factory, they install a rubber band to hold this in place. Kind of a little cheesy, but it's just there for one purpose. When you assemble the glove box, it keeps this lever pulled towards the frame. Two ways you can go about that. You can, as you're installing the glove box, if you don't have the rubber band there, you can hold the lever, and as you're installing the glove box, if you hold this lever, they'll be in the right order. Otherwise, oftentimes this little lever will get underneath this and you'll end up assembling the scooter and the glove box won't work. Obviously the rubber band's gonna be a sure thing. If you have the rubber band around there, it's gonna hold it in place, and you'll be assured that it's properly set up in the correct order there. So first of all, you want to get all the electrical connections hooked up. Never touch this mechanical cable. You have this top connection right here, which is your seat pop. and it's keyed, so you can see everything's getting a little tight as we connect up each of these electrical connections. I'll do the USB jack. Hands probably in the way, but get the idea. And last will be the fuse block, which is gotta really get the glove box close. So you slide the fuse box back into place and it snaps, and there you got it. So make sure you get those all connected. You'll have problems. I mean, if you don't hook up the seat pop button, then you're gonna have to take it back apart or partially apart. The fun part, go ahead and start stretching this around everything. First of all, starting with the key. One other idea that you could do is you could pull the immobilizer ring off the scooter. There's little tabs, 3 little tabs that retain this immobilizer ring, and you could just kind of have it down to the side. And it makes it a little easier to get this around the thing, but obviously you got to pop that back into place before you button up the scooter. The scooter's not going to start with that immobilizer ring out of place. So got that side around, and now I'm working to get it around the wiring here. So. And now we're to a point where I could pop the immobilizer ring back on. Again, like when I removed it, you can see it's possible to pull it past everything with the immobilizer ring in place. And also keep in mind, if you don't want to struggle with it a bunch, take the whole entire headset apart. If you take all the plastics off the handlebars, job goes even smoother. So. So just going between the 2 sides. I got the plastic that kind of prevents the parts from grinding here. And you'll find that the left side always hangs up, and what it is the fan motor kind of rubs on the bottom of the glove box. You kind of just get it past that point. Next step is this groove has to engage with the Legshield trim. It's a little tricky to do it the first time. May take a couple tries, but you just pretty much gotta lift it into place. And what I like to do is have the center screw ready to go once I get everything in place, because once that in the edge of the glove box is in the Legshield trim, then you'll find that you could pop that single screw in there, and it will kind of hold the glove box in place. So kind of giving it a lift there. Obviously, if the scooter's been crashed or something, it's going to be much more difficult to get all this stuff to line up. You see this side kind of doesn't want to go in the middle. You know, sometimes you might need to just give it a little stretch. So I got both corners in. It's in for the most part all the way around to the top, and want to shift it where the key lines up. And sometimes just a couple little budges will get the glove box to go into the Legshield trim. So once you get that started, you can go ahead and put the screw in. And you don't want to tighten it all the way, just enough to hold the glove box in place so you can work on it a little bit more to get the trim all perfectly lined up all the way around the perimeter. So you can see it took a lot of manipulation to get it all to pop into the groove all the way around. Even at the top, it still needs a little bit more manipulation to get that in place. But as you get it closer, you can just tighten the screw a little bit more so it puts a little more pressure on the glove box. There's one thing to check before you close up the glove box door too as well. So now you can check the operation of the seat latch. Excuse me, the glove box latch. Make sure it's working, because if you go any further, you're gonna be in for a lot of trouble if you gotta take it back apart. We'll go ahead and install the pair of long screws with a pointed tip on the two edges. And sometimes you just gotta help pull the glove box in. You don't want to tighten these too much. They're very small fasteners. Then do the pair of smaller fasteners in the upper left and right corners. Sometimes you'll have difficulty getting them lined up. If that's the case, you can use a pick, or you can use the point of the screwdriver to kind of find the boss where it will self tap into the plastic nylon square. The pair of caps can go in place. Make sure you reinstall the radiator cap tight. So you take your upper bracket, drop it into place. Make sure you don't drop it into the frame. And go ahead and tighten the single screw. Sometimes you'll need to hold the bracket from the back, kind of get everything to line up. Take the horn cover, it just snaps into place at the bottom. Just like that. Give it a small tap. So now we'll install the single fastener that holds the upper mount. Gotta just make sure you line up the point. A little difficult to see in there. You can even pull it away and do it from the back side. That helps you. And once it starts, it will just grab that plastic square and pull the cover right in. Snap the badge in place. And there you go. Dressed up with the nice black trim. Matches the chevrons in the front on the horn grille very nicely. So that was all the steps needed to gain access to removal of the floorboard, the glove box, the side skirts, in order to change the leg shield trim. Or if you wanted to replace this bag hook, or if you just need to do any type of maintenance underneath any of those items. Or maybe you want to take the bike apart and repaint it. Pretty much most of the bodywork is removed with all those steps. Hope it helped everybody out. In the long run, a little different than the prior year's GTSs. If you watched my prior videos on how to do these steps, check out any products you need for your Vespa, whether it's a modern Vespa like this GTS or a vintage Vespa, scooterwest.com, VespaMotorsport.com for our dealership. It sells new Vespas here in San Diego and all over the United States. Give us a call, 619-280-1718. Our sales teams for both the parts and vehicles are happy to help you out. If you're looking for custom work and service, we have a full service repair department with an in-house paint shop, a welding shop, do all sorts of custom fabrication, electrical work here. A little bit more than the typical scooter dealership. Until next time, it's Robot here. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Vespa Motorsport. Follow me, Robot Vespa.